I don't know who you are. I suppose that's fine. I haven't spoken to anyone in 3 days, and this seems as good a direction as any. I'm in the French Alps, La Chapelle d'Abondance. You won't know it. Haute-Savoie, a stone farmhouse I rented 7 months ago, about 1,200 meters up, tight valley between the Chablais and the Swiss border, 8 kilometers from the nearest village with a cafe. My neighbor is 2 kilometers down the track, and I have not introduced myself. I have decided this is acceptable behavior for a woman of 66. I came here by choice. I want to be clear about that. I researched the rental. I reviewed the terms. I verified the heating system. Cast iron, oil-fed, reliable through February. I arranged the wire transfer, made the booking, packed 2 bags. I flew to Geneva, took a car from the airport, arrived on a Tuesday in September. Everything was organized. That is one way to tell it. I spent 28 years running events, high-end event production, corporate galas, political fundraisers, museum openings, society weddings. I co-founded the firm at 31 with $40,000 and a borrowed tablecloth inventory. By the time I closed it, we had 14 staff and ran over 180 events a year. 3 governors were clients. The CEO of Ford flew his people to Louisville for a retirement dinner. My firm handled everything from the truck loading at 6 in the morning to the last glass cleared at midnight. I was known in Louisville as the woman who makes everything work. What that means practically is that problems happened and I absorbed them before they reached the room. There was always a room, a hotel ballroom, a museum atrium, a restored train station, and the room was the thing. The room had to be right. The guests had to walk in and feel that every element had been arranged for them, with care, without visible effort, as if the evening had simply emerged from the occasion itself, rather than from 6 months of advance work and 32 vendors and a timeline that accounted for every 15 minutes from load in to breakdown. I ran a benefit gala for the Louisville Free Public Library every year for 19 years. Same client, same season, always different room because the venue changed. 412 guests the last time. Governor attended, Secretary of State of Kentucky. The evening went, in the language of my industry, flawlessly. Flawlessly means nothing visible went wrong. It does not mean nothing went wrong. 31 minutes before first guest arrival, a centerpiece arrangement on the head table collapsed. Structural failure in the floral foam. 6 arrangements, about 4 feet of height each, all anchored in the same compromised substrate. The florist assistant discovered it. She called me. I walked into the room, looked at what was there, looked at what was not there, told the florist assistant to clear the table entirely, called 2 of my waitstaff over, repositioned a set of silver candelabra from the adjacent display alcove, adjusted the ambient lighting rig to compensate for the lower profile, redistributed 3 other table arrangements laterally to extend the visual line, and was back at the door greeting the first car by the time guests arrived. Nobody in that room ever knew there had been a centerpiece. I had the room. That is the phrase we use. I always had the room. Move McDouglas used to say it that way. He'd walk into an event, any event, it didn't matter, and he'd find me near the door, and he'd say it quietly, almost under his breath, "How's the room?" His version of, "Is everything all right? Are you all right? Is the thing you built still standing?" I always said yes. He said it at the gala for the Kentucky Derby Foundation, 2019. He said it at the American Heart Association dinner in 2021, which was the year I accepted the Louisville Business Journal Businesswoman of the Year award at a table full of people and said the correct things while knowing, in the way you know something you don't permit yourself to fully think, that he was not going to be at the next one. I had that room too. I thought I did. He died on a Thursday in November. Douglas, 70 years old, cardiac arrest. He was a cardiologist, interventional, 34 years at the University of Louisville Health System. He understood the physiology in a way most of us cannot. He recognized the early signs in other people for 3 decades. His own presentation was apparently atypical, or he normalized what he recognized. I don't know. I have thought about this more than is useful. The irony is not lost on me. I have been told by several well-meaning people that I should find it somewhat darkly funny. I do not. I find it accurate. He was precise about other people's hearts. His own was a room he did not advance work. My children are Clare, who is 44 and works in nonprofit leadership in Louisville, Thomas, who is 42 and does something in investment banking in Atlanta that I can describe in general terms but not in detail, and Billy, who is 39 and runs a small restaurant in Portland, Oregon. I have 7 grandchildren between the 3 of them. I know their names and ages and preferences with precision. I am the grandmother who remembers. I am the one who sends the correct thing at the correct time. I have a system. 3 months after I closed the firm, Clare called a family check-in. The word casual was used. It was Zoom. All 3 of them, me on the other end. Clare had prepared a slide. I want you to understand what I mean by that. She had prepared a slide, a presentation slide. Title, Transition Options. She had content, bullet points. She had thought about the structure of the conversation and decided a visual would help. She had done what I would have done, what I had done dozens of times for other people's difficult conversations that needed a container, a shape, a document to hold the moment so no one was overwhelmed by the material alone. Thomas had numbers, square footage of possible alternatives, cost comparisons, a column with proximity to grandchildren scores, which I found simultaneously thoughtful and devastating. Billy said almost nothing, which was new for Billy. Billy had always been the one who talked too much and meant every word, and his silence in that meeting had a quality I could not immediately parse. I sat there and watched my own family run my event. They had an agenda. They had materials. They had distributed roles, Clare as presenter, Thomas as analyst, Billy as, I wasn't sure, witness maybe, or the one who would say the thing at the end that the data hadn't covered. They had produced the meeting before I arrived. They were professional and loving and organized, and they had gotten very good at something. And the thing they had gotten good at was something I had taught them, and I was no longer the one holding the run of show. What I said when Clare asked what I thought. I'll think about it. What I was thinking while the slide was on the screen, that I would have done exactly this, that I had done exactly this many times for the difficult conversations in our family, that I had produced this family's hard moments for 35 years. The logistics, the timing, the advance work, the distribution of roles so that no one person carried too much. I had run the room, and now the room had a new producer, a good one, several good ones. I ended the Zoom. I sat in the chair Douglas used to read in, the chair by the window in what we still called the study, though the books had not been touched in 2 years. I sat there and I did not move for 4 hours. I am not being approximate. I checked the time when I sat down and I checked it when I stood up, and 4 hours had passed. And I had not done anything in those 4 hours, including thinking. I was simply not running the room. I did not know what that felt like. Now I know. I'm doing the thing I do, describing it the way I would describe a production. Organized, sequential, with the materials laid out for you. It wasn't organized. None of this was on the run of show. I looked up farmhouse rentals in France. I had been to Haute-Savoie once with Douglas, 2018, a long weekend in Annecy. I remembered the light. I remembered thinking the mountains had a kind of clarity that the bluegrass never has, a physical definiteness, like the air had been cut to specification. I looked up rentals. I found this one. I came. That is the actual version. In my field, you have something called the run of show. It is the document that contains every minute of the event. Load in at 7, doors to staff at 7:30, vendor access ends at 5, principal arrives at 6:45. Welcome remarks at 7:15, first course served at 7:45, award presentation at 8:30, dancing begins at 9, last call at 10:45, venue clear by midnight. Every decision made in advance held in your hands in a document you have read enough times that you no longer need to consult it because it lives in you, because you are the document. That's what I was. For 28 years, I was the run of show, not just for the events, for everything. The family calendar, the holiday logistics, the medical appointment system for Douglas in his last 2 years, which was its own full-time production. The vendor matrix for the house renovation in 2017. I ran that the same way I ran a gala. Timeline, sequencing, contingency slots. When Douglas's mother came to visit for the last time before she died, I ran an advance brief with Clare and Thomas about the visit agenda, the conversation topics that were permissible, the room she should and shouldn't be taken to, the timing of meals. A gentle advance brief, professional grade. I thought this was love. I thought organizing things carefully was how you showed people that you had thought about them, that it was a form of care. The Alps don't have an agenda. That is the thing I noticed first, or the thing that has stayed with me most. The light here comes when it comes. In winter, it's low and lateral, arriving late in the morning and leaving before 4. It does not adjust for my schedule. The snow fell twice last month, and both times I had no advance notice. Not from a forecast I checked, not from a pattern I knew. It simply appeared. The farmhouse has 4 chairs at the table, and I use 1. The other 3 are exactly where they were when I arrived. I have not moved them. I get up at 7:10. Tea, not coffee. Douglas made the coffee, and I have not found a way to make it that tastes like anything except the absence of Douglas making it, so I make tea. I walk up the dirt track toward the meadow at 7:45, and I am back by 10. I read in the afternoon. I cook in the evening. Simple things, the kind of cooking I never had time for when I was running 180 events a year. I go to sleep early because the altitude makes everything take effort, and by 8 o'clock I am genuinely tired in a way I did not know I could be. I caught myself 2 months ago making a mental note about departure timing for the walk. I was sitting at the table drinking my tea, and I thought, I should leave by 7:45 to be back before the light shifts at 10, accounting for the gradient on the upper section of the track and the probability of ice on the north-facing stretch near the rock shelf. I had a contingency. If the ice was bad, I could cut through the lower meadow path and lose about 12 minutes, but eliminate the slip risk. I was running a run of show for a walk, alone, on a dirt track in the French Alps with no one waiting and nowhere to be, and nothing at the end of it except the rock shelf and the view, and then turning around and coming back. The binder is on the table, brown leather, custom made, the kind of thing that costs more than you expect because of the material and the construction, and because the person who made it understood what you were going to put inside it and treated that seriously. My initials on the cover, FW, in gold, slightly worn at the tips of the letters from 20 years of handling. The staff gave it to me on my 20th year in the firm. It replaced the one I had bought myself at 31, which I ran into the ground and then kept in a box in the storage room for reasons I never examined. I packed it when I left Louisville. I don't know why. I don't know what I thought I was going to do with it here. There's nothing to plan. There's no event. There's no client. No vendor matrix, no run of show to write. It smells like it always has, leather and the particular mild metallic note of the ring binder mechanism inside, and something older underneath that I associate with the storage room of our first office. The smell of a place where things were kept in order, where the system worked. I don't know what room this is. Yesterday morning, the light came in through the south window at about 9:15. Winter light, alpine, the kind that arrives at an angle and makes every object very precise. The grain of the oak table, the worn patches on the ceramic tiles, the edge of the binder where the leather is just beginning to dry at the corner. A cloud came across the valley from the Swiss side, and the light went, and the room changed, and then the cloud passed, and the light came back. It took maybe 4 minutes. The cloud crossed because it was crossing. It did not check.